Hello students, I hope you're having a fantastic day. In this video, you'll be taking a TOEFL IBT Reading Masterclass. In the next 30 minutes, you'll learn everything you need to know to approach the TOEFL IBT reading section. This includes the different types of reading passages, the different types of questions, overall formatting, timing, strategies, and tips. And if you'd like to receive a free PDF, which contains all of the important information from this video, along with 3 quizzes to test your comprehension, simply click on the link in the description below. After you enter your email, you'll immediately receive a link to download the PDF. And if you're really serious about your TOEFL IBT preparation, check out our online course, Unlock the TOEFL IBT, Mastering the Test. All right, students, let's get started. This section comprises 2 scholarly passages, each approximately 700 words in length, and stimulates the type of reading material you might grapple with in a university setting. Upon reading each passage, you'll be faced with a series of 10 questions, totaling 20 questions in all for the entire reading section. You have 36 minutes to finish the entire reading section, which means you have 18 minutes to read each passage and answer the accompanying 10 questions. Now let's talk about the 3 types of reading passages you could encounter in the reading section. We have expository passages, argumentative passages, and historical passages. Expository passages present a topic and elaborate on it, explaining it in detail. This is probably the most common type of passage on the TOEFL IBT. Here's an example of an excerpt from an expository passage. It's titled, "The Process of Photosynthesis," and the passage begins with, "Photosynthesis is a complex process that occurs in the chloroplasts of plant cells. During this process, plants convert light energy into chemical energy, which is stored in the form of glucose. The process begins when light is absorbed by chlorophyll, the green pigment in plants," and the passage continues. You can see that the passage focuses on a single topic, in this case, the process of photosynthesis, and then it goes into some detail about that topic. Next up, we have argumentative passages. These passages present a point of view or argument on a particular topic. Here's an example of an excerpt from an argumentative passage. It's titled, "The Case for Renewable Energy." The passage begins with, "As the global demand for energy continues to rise, the debate over the best sources of energy intensifies. Advocates for renewable energy argue that solar, wind, and hydroelectric power are not only sustainable, but also essential for reducing carbon emissions. Opponents, however, contend," and the passage continues. You can see in this passage's introduction that the topic of argument is about renewable energy resources. Lastly, we have historical passages. These passages provide historical context or narrate historical events. Here's an example of an excerpt from a historical passage. It's titled, "The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire," and it begins with, "The Roman Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in history, dominated much of the ancient world for over 5 centuries. Its rise to power was marked by military conquests, political innovation, and economic expansion." And the passage continues. You can see this passage is a historical narrative on the Roman Empire. Now let's talk about the 4 types of question formats you'll encounter in the reading section. We have multiple choice questions with a single correct answer, multiple choice questions with multiple correct answers, insert the sentence questions, and reading to learn questions. Multiple choice questions with a single correct answer are the traditional multiple choice question. You're given a question with 4 answer choices, and only one of those answer choices is correct. Next, we have multiple choice questions with multiple correct answers. You're given a question with 4 answer choices, and there could be 2 or 3 correct answers. Now, don't worry, because on the test, the question's directions will always inform you of how many answers you need to select if there's more than one answer. Next, we have insert the sentence questions, where you need to integrate a given sentence into an existing passage at the most appropriate point. Here's an example where you have the reading passage, the directions which state insert the following sentence into the passage where it best fits, and the given sentence that you need to insert into the above passage. So you'll have to decide where the given sentence best fits into the passage by selecting A, B, C, or D. Lastly, we have reading to learn questions, where you have a larger pool of answer choices, between 6 and 8 answer choices, and you essentially have to complete a table by selecting numerous correct answers. Here's an example where you have a table with 7 answer choices, and you need to select only 3 sentences that should be categorized under renewable resources, and only 2 sentences that should be categorized under non-renewable resources. Here's a list of the 10 types of questions that you'll encounter in the reading section. We have sentence simplification, negative factual information, reference, insert text, inference, rhetorical purpose, vocabulary, factual information, fill in the table, and prose summary. Now, the reason why it's important that you understand the anatomy of each question type is because each type requires a different approach and different strategies to best answer it. The better you understand and are prepared for each question type, the more confident you're going to be going into the test, and the better you're going to perform overall in the reading section. The last thing that you want on test day is to encounter a question where you don't even know what you're supposed to do or what you're supposed to be looking for. First up, we have sentence simplification questions. These questions test your ability to identify the core meaning of a complex sentence, usually one with multiple clauses, details, or advanced vocabulary. The task is to choose a simplified version of the sentence that retains the essential information without changing the meaning. In this type of question, students must focus on the main idea, distinguishing it from less important details or examples. The correct answer will typically condense the original sentence by removing redundant or non-essential information while preserving the core meaning. Let's look at this example of a sentence simplification question. The original sentence reads, enzymes are biological catalysts that speed up chemical reactions by lowering the activation energy required for reactions to occur. But their activity can be significantly affected by factors such as temperature, pH, and the presence of inhibitors or activators. And the question reads, which of the following best expresses the essential information in the sentence? If you'd like to try answering this question on your own, feel free to pause the video now and unpause the video when you're ready to hear the correct answer and continue. The correct answer is C, because it accurately simplifies the original sentence while preserving the key information about enzymes' role in speeding up reactions and how environmental factors affect them. Answer A is incorrect because it omits key information about enzymes lowering activation energy, and it implies that enzymes are only sensitive to temperature and pH. Answer B is incorrect because it overly emphasizes the negative effects of temperature and pH without mentioning the broader role of enzymes in lowering activation energy. And answer D is incorrect because it introduces inaccuracies by implying that inhibitors and activators are more important than temperature and pH, which changes the original meaning of the sentence and is not supported by the original information. Now, I chose to start with sentence simplification questions because they are among the more difficult and confusing questions in the reading section. And I wanted to illustrate the point that it is very important that you're aware of every question type in the reading section so you can be properly prepared for them on test day. Moving on to the second question type, we have negative factual information questions. These types of questions require test takers to identify information that is not true or is not mentioned in the reading passage. They typically ask the reader to find which option is not consistent with the facts provided in the text. Let's look at an example. we have the reading passage excerpt, the task, which states, according to the passage, all of the following are true of Shakespeare, except, and then you have the 4 answer choices. If you'd like to try answering this question on your own, feel free to pause the video now. When you're ready to hear the correct answer and continue, simply unpause the video. So the correct answer is C. The passage states that Shakespeare wrote 154 sonnets, not over 200. Therefore, C is not factually accurate according to the passage, while the other 3 answers were accurate according to the passage. Next, let's look at reference questions. Reference questions ask test takers to determine what a specific word or phrase refers to within the passage. The purpose is to assess a student's ability to understand connections between ideas, pronouns, or other referential expressions in the text. For example, a question might ask, the word it in line 15 refers to, so students need to look at the context around the word and identify what the word it refers to. Let's look at an example from a sociology textbook. We have the reading passage, then the question, which states, the word this refers to, so you can see the word this highlighted in the passage. It's your job to determine what the word this refers to in the passage. If you'd like to try answering this question on your own, feel free to pause the video now. When you're ready to hear the correct answer and continue, simply unpause the video. The correct answer is B. Here, this refers to the Protestant work ethic mentioned in the preceding sentence. Moving on, let's look at insert text questions. I briefly covered this type of question format in the first video of this series on the TOEFL IBT reading section. Insert text questions require test takers to determine the most appropriate place within a passage to insert a given sentence. You're provided with a sentence and asked to choose from 4 possible places in the passage where the sentence would best fit. Let's look at an example. We have the reading passage, the question, which states, where does the following sentence best fit, the given sentence that you're supposed to insert into the passage, and the 4 places in the passage where we can insert the given sentence. If you'd like to try answering this question on your own, feel free to pause the video now. When you're ready to hear the correct answer and continue, simply unpause the video. The correct answer is B, because the given sentence describes what happened during the Great Depression, which logically should come after the section of the passage which describes the underlying causes of the Great Depression. It would not make logical sense to put the sentence anywhere else with the choices provided. Let's move on to inference questions. Inference questions ask test takers to draw logical conclusions based on the information provided in the passage, even though the answer might not be explicitly stated. Students need to synthesize information and understand the text's context, logic, and underlying meaning, even if the specific details aren't explicitly written. Let's look at an example together. We have the reading passage, the question, which states, what can be inferred about the impact of learned helplessness on human behavior in stressful situations? And we have the 4 answer choices. If you'd like to try answering this question on your own, feel free to pause the video now. The correct answer is D, because the passage describes how learned helplessness leads individuals, and animals in the case of Seligman's experiments, to stop attempting to change their situation, even when there are opportunities to do so. The implied idea here is that learned helplessness decreases an individual's motivation to act despite the availability of solutions. Moving on, let's look at rhetorical purpose questions. When approaching rhetorical purpose questions, students should first identify the specific part of the passage being asked about and understand its context within the larger text. Then they should consider the author's intention behind including that information, such as whether it is meant to clarify, emphasize, or support an argument. Here's an example of a rhetorical purpose question. There's the passage and the question. If you'd like to try answering this question on your own, feel free to pause the video now. The correct answer is A. Plato's allegory is meant to show how people can be deceived by appearances, and that true knowledge comes from understanding the deeper reality beyond the senses. Now let's take a look at vocabulary questions. These questions ask you to determine the meaning of a word or phrase based on its context within the passage. Students must choose another word or phrase that best fits the given context. Let's look at this example. You can see that vocabulary questions are slightly different than the other question types we've learned about so far in the TOEFL IBT reading section, as there's not a larger reading passage excerpt before the question. With vocabulary questions, you're only given a single sentence from the reading passage, then the question, which states, the word counteract in the passage is closest in meaning to. I'll give you about 10 seconds to answer this question on your own. The correct answer is B. In this context, counteract means to oppose or neutralize the effect of inertia. The passage explains that seatbelts provide the force needed to stop the forward motion caused by inertia, thus neutralizing or preventing the continued movement of passengers. Next up, we have factual information questions. These questions focus on testing a student's ability to identify specific details or facts explicitly stated in a passage. They often require recognizing definitions, facts, or explanations from the passage. Looking at an example, we have another large passage excerpt, and then the question which states, which of the following events marked the transition from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire? If you'd like to try answering this question on your own, feel free to pause the video now. The correct answer is C. The passage states that the rise of Augustus as the first emperor in 27 BCE marked the transition from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire. Moving on, we have fill in the table questions. These questions require you to categorize information or main points from the passage into the table. The table usually focuses on key themes, causes, effects, comparisons, or processes. Let's look at an example. Now, with this example, the reading passage has been shortened for the purposes of this video, just to teach you how fill-in-the-table questions work. But know that on the actual TOEFL IBT test, fill-in-the-table questions will be based on the entire 700-word reading passage, and you will have the ability to view the entire reading passage at any time when you're completing a fill-in-the-table question. This table is how tables will appear on the actual TOEFL IBT. Looking at the table's directions, it states, select from the 8 characteristics below, the 3 that characterize reptiles, and the 2 that characterize birds. If you'd like to try completing this table on your own, feel free to pause the video now. And here is the completed table. Next, let's move on to our last question type, prose summary questions. These questions are similar to fill-in-the-table questions where you need to complete a table, but instead of categorizing, you need to summarize key points from a passage. You're given 6 or 7 answer choices, but only 3 correct ones. The correct answers represent the most important points, while the incorrect options may include minor details or irrelevant information. Looking at an example, we have the reading passage, which again is shortened for the purposes of this video, and the table that needs to be completed. The directions state, complete the summary below by selecting the 3 correct answer choices that represent the most important ideas from the passage. 3 answer choices are incorrect because they focus on less important information or are inaccurate. If you'd like to try completing this table on your own, feel free to pause the video now. And here is the completed table. First, let's start with skimming and scanning. Skimming is a technique that is all about getting the main idea of a passage quickly. When you first see a reading passage, skim it before doing anything else. Focus on the title, the first and last sentences of each paragraph, keywords, dates, names, or numbers. Skimming gives you a quick understanding of the overall structure and the author's purpose. After skimming, go back and thoroughly read the entire passage. This will help you grasp the details and context better, so you're prepared for any type of question later on. Now let's talk about scanning. Once you're answering questions, use scanning to quickly find specific information. If the question asks about a date, name, or fact, scan the passage for those key words. This lets you zero in on the answer without rereading everything. So remember, skim first, then read the entire passage thoroughly, and then scan to target the details when answering questions. Next, we're going to talk about time management strategies for the TOEFL IBT reading section. You'll have around 36 minutes to read 2 passages and answer all of the questions, which doesn't leave much room for wasting time. Try to spend around 18 minutes reading each passage and answering the accompanying 10 questions. When you begin a passage, spend 2 minutes or less skimming through it first. Look for main ideas, dates, numbers, and keywords. This quick overview gives you a map of the passage's overall structure. Once you've skimmed, read the entire passage thoroughly. Spend about 6 minutes to read the entire passage. Focus on understanding the content, but don't get bogged down by unfamiliar words. And again, note where the key information is. That means you're aiming to spend around 8 minutes on the passage. Lastly, you'll move on to the questions. You'll have 10 minutes left at this point, so spend about 1 minute per question. If you encounter an easy question that you can answer quickly, then do so. Doing this will save you time later for any difficult questions that you may encounter. Keep in mind, you can skip questions and return to them later if you have time. Prioritize finishing all the easier questions first, so you can focus on trickier ones afterward. Following this strategy ensures that you won't get stuck. That means you're aiming to spend about 10 minutes total to answer all of the questions. Now let's talk about making inferences and using context clues. In the TOEFL IBT reading section, some questions won't directly give you the answer. Instead, you'll need to make an inference. This means you take the information from the passage and make an educated guess about what the author is implying. A good tip is to look for hints in the text, like specific word choices or repeated themes, and combine them with what you already know. Ask yourself, what is the author suggesting here, even if it's not explicitly stated? Let's look at this example of an inference question. The excerpt reads, "While early settlers in North America primarily relied on agriculture to sustain their communities, many coastal settlements also depended on fishing. These towns developed extensive trade networks to exchange goods like fish, furs, and timber with European nations." And the question says, what can be inferred about the coastal settlements mentioned in the passage? If you'd like to try answering this question on your own, pause the video now and unpause when you're ready to continue. The passage mentions that coastal settlements developed extensive trade networks to exchange goods like fish, furs, and timber with European nations. This suggests that they likely had more direct contact with Europe compared to inland settlements that may not have had such an extensive trade network, making B the correct answer. The other options either contradict the passage or are not supported by the information provided. Next is context clues, which help you figure out the meaning of unfamiliar words or phrases. When you encounter a word you don't know, don't panic. Instead, focus on the surrounding words and sentences. Authors often give clues in the form of definitions, examples, or comparisons nearby. Let's look at this example of a vocabulary question from the TOEFL IBT. The passage excerpt reads, "The scientist's groundbreaking research provided profound insights into the behavior of marine ecosystems. Her work has been recognized as a major contribution to the field of environmental science." And the question says, the word profound in the passage is closest in meaning to. If you'd like to try answering the question on your own, pause the video now and unpause when you're ready to continue. To use context clues, focus on the surrounding words. The phrases groundbreaking research and major contribution to the field suggests that the insights were significant or impactful, making D the correct answer. So remember, use context clues to understand tricky vocabulary and make inferences to grasp deeper meanings that aren't directly stated. Next, let's focus on understanding rhetorical functions. Rhetorical functions refer to the purpose or role that part of the text serves. In the TOEFL IBT reading section, you might be asked why an author includes a certain detail, example, or phrase. To answer these questions, it's important to ask yourself, why did the author write this? Is it to give evidence, introduce an idea, make a comparison, or persuade the reader? A useful strategy is to look at the context around the sentence and ask yourself how it fits into the bigger picture. Look for phrases like, on the other hand, however, therefore, or for instance. These phrases can give you strong clues about the rhetorical function, whether the author is making a comparison, introducing a new idea, explaining a result, or giving an example. Looking at an example from the reading section, this excerpt reads, many researchers argue that the rapid decline of bee populations worldwide is largely due to the widespread use of pesticides. However, others contend that climate change plays a far more significant role in the disappearance of bees. And the question says, why does the author mention climate change in the passage? If you'd like to try answering the question on your own, please pause the video now and unpause when you're ready to continue. In this case, the phrase, however, others contend that climate change plays a far more significant role, contrasts with the first argument that pesticides are responsible for the decline in bee populations. Therefore, the author mentions climate change to introduce a contrasting viewpoint, making B the correct answer. Lastly, let's look at summarizing and paraphrasing. Summarizing means condensing the key points of a passage into a shorter version, focusing on the main ideas without all the details. A good strategy for this is to ask yourself, what's the author's main point in this paragraph or section? Look for topic sentences and supporting points, but skip the examples or extra information. Summarizing helps you grasp the overall meaning and can be really useful when answering questions about the main idea of a passage. Looking at an example of how to summarize. Keep in mind, this is not an example from the TOEFL IBT reading section. This example is to help you learn the skill of summarizing, which you can later apply when you take the test. The excerpt reads, socialization is the process by which individuals learn and internalize the values, beliefs, and norms of their society. This process is crucial in shaping personal identity and maintaining social order. Family, schools, peers, and media are key agents of socialization, although the impact can vary depending on factors such as socioeconomic status and culture. If you'd like to try writing a summary of this passage on your own, pause the video now and unpause when you're ready to continue. The summary I wrote says, socialization is how people learn societal values and norms, shaping their identity and maintaining social order. It is influenced by several agents, though the effects vary depending on certain factors. You can see that I wrote my summary by using only the most important information, excluding smaller details and simplifying the language. Next is paraphrasing, which involves rewriting a specific sentence in your own words, while keeping the original meaning. The key here is to change the structure and vocabulary, but not the main idea. For example, if the given sentence says, the scientist discovered a new method for analyzing data, how could you paraphrase it? If you'd like to try paraphrasing this sentence on your own, pause the video now and unpause when you're ready to continue. You could write, a new data analysis technique was found by the scientists. Paraphrasing shows that you truly understand what you've read and can express it in a different way. All right, students, well done on completing that TOEFL IBT Reading Masterclass. Don't forget, if you'd like to receive a free PDF for this masterclass, which is 42 pages long, simply click on the link in the description below. And if you'd like to test your skills, I suggest you check out one of our many TOEFL IBT practice test videos on our YouTube channel. And lastly, if you're really serious about your TOEFL IBT preparation, check out our online course, Unlock the TOEFL IBT Mastering the Tests, also in the description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos on the TOEFL IBT and other important topics related to test prep, university admissions, and advanced English. Are you taking the TOEFL IBT soon? Then I invite you to take our course, Unlock the TOEFL IBT Mastering the Test online preparation course. It's a fully online, self-paced course that comprehensively prepares you for every section of the TOEFL IBT. It has engaging readings, expert video lessons, interactive quizzes, proven strategies, hundreds of practice questions, 2 full-length online practice tests, and individualized feedback. With this course, you'll have everything you need to ace the TOEFL IBT. For more information, the link to the course page is in the description below.